In the last step of the strings, lists, and whiles homework is you're asked to use a while loop once somewhere in your program. And so this is my solution, average, negative, evens, and count letter. And there's two for loops. Each of them could be converted to a while loop. And so what I'd like to do now is go through that to demonstrate the process. There's a couple challenges with converting a for loop to a while loop. First of all, let's take a look at this loop. For num in list. This is getting each value in the list. With a while loop, I'm going to be working with index numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this out for now and replace it with my while loop components. I will also need not only a loop variable, but I may find it handy to redefine num as well, because I want to minimize the changes to my code to make it easier to see what needs to change to make this while loop happen. So I'm going to need a loop variable that's going to be an index that's going to keep track of where I am in my list. And then while my index is less than the length of the list, I'm going to do some stuff. And then at the very end, I am going to increment my index by 1. This is the standard loop structure for using a while to iterate through all the elements of a list. Now, you might notice in red, I have my num. And so let's go ahead and make our lives easy. I'm going to set a num variable equal to a value at index I in my list. And so in this way, I can really minimize the changes that are necessary so you can see it. So here we're initializing the loop index variable. Here is our loop condition, until we go through all of them, and then here is our increment. So our loop variable increment, and then this is how we go from index to value in list. Okay, so there was really 4 steps here. And so if you didn't have a chance to do this on your own in the homework yet, what I recommend you do is pause the video and go on and try and make these changes to count letter. Okay, I'm going to go on now and make these changes as well. So we're going to go through the same process. And we can actually follow the same exact template. Okay, so we can comment this out, and then instead I can say I equals 0 while I is less than the length of my list. I can say string equals list I, and then at the end of my loop I can say I plus equals 1. So I went through the exact same process. Initialized loop variable, set a condition while it was less than the length of the list, renamed my loop variable from the for loop before to be list I to be string, and then I incremented my loop variable at the end. Now the only thing I haven't done is ran it to demonstrate that these while loops are in fact identical to the for loops they replaced. Ta-da! And we do successfully get the same output. You might be wondering, and it's a natural question, why while loops in the first place? Right? Because the for loop was so simple. Why do we need to bother with a while loop anyways? Well, there's some things that a for loop can't do. A for loop can only work with deterministic loops. So loops where we know in advance how many times they're going to execute. So for example, looping through all the items in a list, whether it's strings or numbers, or looping through all the lines in a file, we know in advance exactly how big that file or list will be. However, sometimes we want to create loops that are based on the user's input, where we don't know how many times the loop will execute in advance. In those cases, we must use a while loop. And finally, the last reason we use a while loop is because if we ever want what's called an infinite loop, what if we never want our loop to end? This applies to programs, for example, in operating systems or web servers. So when you're using your computer or your phone, do you want it to ever shut down? Usually not. And so most system software that we use actually use infinite while loops, which are impossible with for loops. And there you have it.